Hey guys, Saloon here. Welcome to the movie edition of the Arcane Mage series, where you can see the whole journey in one video. This is perfect if this is your first time watching, or you missed episodes, or simply you just weirdly enjoy listening to my voice, or you need something to fall asleep to. So, enjoy! Hi, my name is Saloon, and I usually make videos about transmog, but I also just finished a series where I went from 0 to 3k as a holy paladin. At the end of that, I made a poll for DPS packs I never played before to take from 0 to hero, and Arcane Mage has won. So here we are. Welcome to the first episode of the Arcane Mage series. This is Chisu, my vampire-looking mage who just hit level 80, so our starting point is 543 item level. Before I go any further, a couple rules. Pugging only, no help from friends, and my guild disbanded a few weeks ago anyway, so don't need to worry about that. I unlinked my Raider IO, so my other characters' score won't show. I did equip some warbound gear, but only up to veteran items as my bank is littered with them and they are very easy to come by anyway. I have about 30k gold on this character in total for crafted items and consumables. And achieving 2500 is not enough, I also have to time all 10s. I leveled up on a Tuesday night, which was a few hours before reset on EU. I started with the Legion Time Walking weekly quest, which gave me Champion Crit Haste shoulders. Afterwards, I equipped 5 warbound items, 3 were veteran, 1 adventurer and 1 explorer. Next, I dealt with the annoying ring Syresis circlet and spent about an hour upgrading it to the max. The next day, thanks to the Time Walking dungeons, I had a vault to open and had 2 veteran tier pieces in it. I picked a chest because I already had veteran gloves and my chest was still only an explorer. I started this week by flying around, picking up delve keys and crests from renown, do weeklies and dailies such as the Nightfall Incursion, Undermine Vault boss, weeklies, vault quests, and I even went into Alafar in hopes of a tier set, but instead I only got repair bills and no loot whatsoever. After I was done with all the vault content, I was at 621 item level. See how easy it is, as long as you're not a lazy piece of shiitake mushroom, doing nothing and applying to a +2 dungeon in 600 or less item level where you won't get loot anyway. Don't be a shiitake mushroom, just go do some weeklies. Anyways, now it was time for some bountiful delves. I did 4 for now and didn't get a map unfortunately, so I got a Crit Mastery offhand, Haste Mastery ring, Haste Mastery wrists, and Crit Mastery boots. After those delves, I catalyzed 3 champion items to get 4 set and upgraded some of my lowest items because I had no better use for the weathered crests anyway. So, before entering the first dungeon, I'm on 638 item level, and that's the fresh level gearing done. Naturally, my stats are all over the place. I should be aiming for haste versatility apparently, and my trinkets are utter garbage. I'm using Spellslinger Mythic Plus talent build that I yanked off Arcane.gg. The first dungeon I was invited to was a Macagon +2. At this point I had no idea what I was doing. I'm trying to use my cooldown, but I had to move.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
And then I get knocked around, but somehow I still managed to look good on the damage meter compared to the others, probably the 4 set carrying me despite not even knowing what it does yet. Before any of you start furiously typing in the comments, hold your horses. While I appreciate any tips about how to play this spec, just watch the whole video cause I made some improvements along the way, don't worry. Do you feel hungry? How about some freshly roasted floor chicken? Oh, that wasn't enough? Don't worry, we got you covered, this time with some extra salt. In these low-key dungeons, I often see people struggle with this spider mech, so if you're not familiar with this, when it goes into discharge mode, you want to be in melee, and you should stand in between the two beams, as that's the safe zone. You can turn your camera downwards, so it's a bit easier to spot the safe zone. Before the last boss, the tank pulled big, but the other two DPS kind of struggled to survive, so we were 3-manning that pool for quite a while. And because the tank was a bit slow moving them, they had reduced damage on top, so this took us forever to clear. We did finish the key in time, but received no loot. The other two DPS were also above 630, but I know for sure I was only ahead of them because of my support set. I assume they probably didn't have theirs yet. Priory +3 was next, where I was quickly reminded of what is it like to be a caster. Oh, oops. Oh, not again. I am so bad at this game. In the last room we had a big pool, but then the Lightspawn patrol pack walked into it as well. Unfortunately, as one of the Lightspawn dies, every enemy in his circle will heal up. I used up all my defensives, so me and the warrior die. And then both of us die again. The healer was above 660, boosting his rogue friend, and I was impressed. We didn't just wipe that, but also I felt like I didn't get any healing after me and the warrior came back the first time. But whatever. We killed most of the pack, but the tank failed to pull Brawn Pike out of the spawn circle, so it heals up again. Eventually we finished up the dungeon and I got the champion helmet with a socket, but I already had a tier helmet, so it's useless to me. Up next was a Motherload +4. Yes, a +4 already, and it's not even my key. I know someone will eventually call me out on this, so I'll mention it now. I don't have Lost on a keybind and I never will. I just know myself that I would absolutely 100% of the time fat finger Lost no matter what keybind it is, so I'm gonna click it every time. And I'll fight anyone over this, trust me when I say it's much safer this way. I was quite surprised to see the skip in a +4, and can you guess who messes it up? Yours truly, of course. I tried to invis, but I didn't realize the thug has true sight. But it was fine, we dealt with them and continued. Since I'm in a +4 we have affixes, something I really didn't miss after doing 12s lately. So this week it was the balls you have to interrupt. As an Arcane Mage I have two good tools for this. Supernova, who knocks up enemies, and Blast Wave, who knocks enemies away. I'll be honest guys, I could have just cut this part out, but I did quite poorly damage-wise in this dungeon, especially after the second boss. Partially because I was distracted IRL, but I also sat on my cooldowns a lot, which is one thing you should never do as Arcane Mage apparently. So after this dungeon I took a few days break and made sure to read up a bit more on Arcane Mage. When I returned, I got myself a Vikora that is meant to help me with when to cast Arcane Barrage, because there are at least 4 different conditions for it I think, and it's kinda hard for my peanut brain to remember it all. So this Vikora shows me when those conditions are met. With my newly acquired knowledge, I went into Dark Flame +5. And I messed up the first pool straight away. First I got confused if I should Lost here or not. Then I was using Evocation and it felt like a complete waste to use anything because the Evoker, who was like 655, blew this whole pack away. So it felt like I wasted all my cooldowns right off the bat. Great start! On the first boss, it felt like I finally kind of nailed the opener. Everything went off as it should, but also this boss is great for Arcane because of all the little ads. On the second boss, during the last 4%, the tank panicked and stepped away from the boss and got us all killed, so he had to solo it. But then of course the affix came, which he couldn't deal with, so the boss got a ton of damage reduction. He then stepped away from the boss again, which almost wiped him. Despite all that, we still managed to time the dungeon, and although I got no gear, I did get the mount, so at least that's nice. Next destination was Theatre of Pain +3. One thing I really like about Arcane Mage so far are the visuals. Just look at this pretty barrage of spells. It looks great and feels impactful. I've been honestly really enjoying it so far, and it doesn't surprise me that it's currently meta. One thing that occurred to me way too late in this dungeon was the lack of the decurse talent. Oops. I will try to remember it for the future, I promise. After the third boss, I had a totally super big brain tactical death, so I can start the boss RP faster. Trust me, guys. I finally got some loot, which was a haste first dagger. Although it wasn't an upgrade, it was ideal stats, so that's what I'm using now. Next, I did a Rookery +5, where we had no deaths at all, and everyone was around the same IO as me or less, and we bloody +3'd the dungeon. I could barely believe it. As this was my key, I got a Cinder Brew +8 out of it, but I lowered it to 6 because I didn't quite feel ready for an 8 just yet. This dungeon was pure chaos, and I heavily contributed to said chaos. One thing that I was really worried about with Arcane Mage so far are the Arcane Orbs travel distance. This shit travels far. So far in fact that I pulled a mini boss with it, which with the muscles alive put a ton of pressure on our poor healer. That was of course not the only instance of me pulling either. When we pulled the first boss, this happens. Yeah, I did not realize I ripped aggro until I got smacked in the face. As a spec that relies super heavily on its cooldowns, this pull from the tank was quite annoying. At first it looks like they are only pulling these 3, so I don't blow everything on it, but then changes their mind after a little while and pulls more, which was very annoying because I completely messed up my cooldowns now. We had also several aggro issues. The timer was unfortunately gone, but after the third boss someone pulls all the bees, but instead of killing them, they are all running to the mounts and just slowly then die. So silly, like why pull those in the first place? On the last boss then, of course, I was the biggest dumbass and got hit by an exploding barrel that was right next to me. How could I not see that coming? We got pretty close to wiping on this boss, but we thankfully did it. I got no loot, of course. The last dungeon of this week was a Floodgate +5. The first pull in this dungeon is pretty fun as DPS. Everyone in this group had higher item level than me, both DPS had at least 650+, but despite that, being below the tank felt quite embarrassing, so I was a little bit disappointed, because to me, it looked like I did the opener and the rotation right, but I'm not sure. This dungeon was going well, until... Can you guess which boss did we have issues with? Well, of course the swamp boss. The poor warlock stood in every possible wave. Then the healer got bonked as well. And the warlock a second time. Thankfully, it was towards the end, so it didn't matter too much. Bubbles took a victim for himself as well when the druid popped a bubble by accident. On the last boss it was looking like we're about to pull, so I used one of my cooldowns, and then the tank isn't moving, and I'm sitting there all antsy, yelling at my monitor like go 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 go, like an impatient little DPS, while he was typing that a mosquito was on his face. But hey, it's all good, man. After the boss we were still missing some percentage, so we had to go back a bit, but we still managed to double upgrade this dungeon. I may not have been the top DPS, but at least I was top with interrupts, so you know, I'll take that. One last thing to show you guys is the vault. I was really hoping for a trinket because I had a really awful trinket that didn't give any stats, just summoned an eye to assist me in combat. But thankfully, trinket is exactly what we are getting. A heroic funhouse lens is pretty decent, so I happily picked this up. So, after this first week, I'm on 642 item level and have a score of 1621 so far. I've been really enjoying this pack, it's quite fun to play, but I still struggle with my cooldown management the most. Hi, my name is Saloon, and I sometimes make transmog videos, and this is my third Zero to Hero series. Arcane Mage was voted by my lovely viewers through a poll where I offered up 6 packs I never played before. Welcome back to episode 2. Last time I got up to 642 item levels and reached 1621 rating. Last week I forgot to show you guys my weekly hero item from the map in Dows, which were these haste verse legs. I couldn't use them for now though because of tier set. But this week I got hero hands from the map, which I went and catalyzed so I could equip these hero legs too, because they gave best in slot stats. 2 great upgrades right off the bat. The first dungeon of the week is Mechagon Workshop plus 6. I don't even need to say a word here.
Kaboom! Yes, Rico. Kaboom.
Classic workshop start. The chaos does not stop there. Motherlode 6 was next, where the tank pulls the jockey at the beginning, which nobody stops. I wanted to try, but I forgot what keybind sheep is on. I tried to click it instead, but it's way too late because I'm panicking. The tank opted for skipping the pack after the gate with the patrolling peacekeeper, and I'm showing you this because it will be important soon. On the first boss we failed to kick in 2 bombs, which wiped everyone but me because I had mirror image up, so I invis to reset the boss. Remember that pack we skipped earlier? Yeah, of course they get pulled. I started running back, but I stopped myself because I was worried about pulling the patrolling peacekeeper and make things worse, so I wait. Only for one of those Muppets pulling it anyway. We managed to defeat the boss, and afterwards our Paladin lives up to their name and ascends into heaven from an extractor circle. Before the second boss, the tank goes down to the 9 stacks of bleeds, followed by the monk. We are starting to kite back, and then the shaman bloodlusts when most of the pack is already dead, but he admits it was Fatfinger. See guys? This is why I don't keybind lust. On the second boss, the Paladin dies to the earth puddle the boss leaves behind, and I wish I could say that's the last time. After the first boss, he dies to brainstorms. Then he walks into the minefield and dies again. Meanwhile, the shaman decided to audition to the anime series called That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Great performance, he even reincarnated. On the third boss, the tank messed up the boss position, so we got into a peculiar situation where he died, and the shit on the floor was blown to us. In the end, I had to 2-man the boss with the healer, but we got it, and that's what matters. Despite all the shit show, we still managed to time the ski, and I got gloves, which I didn't need anymore, of course. The Wild West of 6s and 7s continues in a Cinderbrew 6, where the tank went and pulled big, and we all expected him to just come back to us, but he didn't, and by the time we catch up to him, he goes down. Later on we had another mishap, where in typical Demon Hunter fashion he jumps in and goes down while he had at least matter to press. We shrouded a pack earlier. We could have walked past it if the Demon Hunter imprisons one of the closest to us, but I couldn't type fast enough, so he just pulled them. Unfortunately, he was running with these, and they put the exploding barrels on the tank, who was in Narnia at this point, so those barrels went off. I tried to help with mass barrier to salvage the situation, but it wasn't quite enough. Thankfully, we were still able to double upgrade this key somehow. If it wasn't for those deaths, could have been even triple. Afterwards, I jumped into Floodgate 6, where I was completely thrown off at the beginning when the tank took a route I didn't see before. He only pulled 4 mobs, so I thought, okay, I'm not blowing everything on this, but then he pulled the 3 patrolling ads just after I used one of my cooldowns. I'd say this is one of the biggest frustration of the spec so far, that you really heavily rely on your cooldowns, and when someone pulls staggered like this, when it seems there is no clear planning in the pull, it feels a bit frustrating. But, to be honest, at the same time, if I was playing a tank who has no idea about how Arcane Mage works, I'm not sure if I'd pay attention to this either, so I can't blame the tanks too much. I would expect tanks to know this kind of stuff in a plus 12 and above, but not below really. Anyway, we easily passed through this dungeon. We had no deaths at all during this run. Then I went on to time a Theatre 6, Workshop, Priory, and Rookery as well. After those dungeons, I decided to do a weekly Nightfall event because one of the champion items on offer was a champion haste war snack, which are best in slot stats for us, and I still had adventurer neck. I did one more key that day, which was a Dark Flame Cleft 6. The first boss worked out really well for me, even though I didn't have all my cooldowns up right at the start. This is my favorite boss as an Arcane Mage so far. The good feels didn't last long, because we got to the Candle King, the hardest boss for pugs in here. The DK has absolutely no idea what is going on and runs out with the circles that are supposed to melt the wax. He was also the only one with an interrupt up, which also doesn't happen. Then on the next interrupt, both druids and the DK had kick available, and
Nope.
Needless to say, we wiped, and my brain melted more than the wax at this point. Then the Warlock couldn't release, which is a known bug, not sure why it happens sometimes, so we had to wait for him, patiently, to relog. I thought to myself, okay, the tank is fairly reliable on doing the first interrupts, so I make sure I'll do the every other interrupt. That worked out quite well, but the DK has still no clue on the mechanics of this boss, which put a ton of pressure on the poor healer. Thankfully, we still managed to kill the boss in the end, but it was a struggle. On the last boss, for some reason I cannot explain, the action button for the candle never appeared to me. I tried to pick it up multiple times, but it never showed up, which really threw me off and made a million bad plays on this boss because of it. But whatever, we still timed it in the end. I took a few days break, and when I came back I decided to do a Theatre plus 7. And boy, I was not ready for this. Upon joining the group, we are greeted with the following message.
Hey, I've never done this dungeon before, but everyone rage quit after first pull.
I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be a wild ride, so it's time to buckle up. Nobody really reacted to what the tank was saying, so once again he was asking for some pointers on what to do. We had 2 Russians who were highly unlikely to offer any help. You can be happy if they understand English, and the priest didn't say anything either. So I thought to myself, well shit, I never tanked this expansion, don't know the routes or anything, but nobody else is trying to help. So I'm trying to explain the first pull based on what I've seen as a DPS or healer, that we skip the first 3 adds with Sood, and he needs to pull the big ad into the boss. He then whacks the key in, no ready check, no pull timer. I had no time to use consumables, but neither did he. He puts the table down, but has no time to eat it. I feel like I didn't quite explain it right when I said pull the big ad together. I didn't mention the boss, so the Russian druid pulled the boss for us. I then said to him that the rest of the dungeon is quite linear and most people go to the exam wing first because of lost timers. I think. I have actually no clue to be honest, but that's where the others were heading to. The druid pulled the mini boss as well for us because the tank wasn't going for it. So I looked up this tank because I noticed he was 660 item level. And I was wondering, is this guy a hardcore delver trying to tank for the first time? Well, no. Before I go any further, I just want to say, I don't judge anyone here. You spend your gold or money however you like, but this guy was boosted. And no, I don't mean it as an insult. I looked him up on Raider.io after this run, and his only dungeons were +10s with a full plate group to trade him gear. And before you think it was friends, unlikely because there were 2 different plate stacked groups and this tank's recorded item level was 500. I wouldn't really recommend anyone to learn the game this way. If you buy a boost as an experienced player just to get gear fast, that I can totally understand. But if you are new to a certain role in the game, or to the game even, I don't think this is a good approach. Before Gorchop, I explained to him that we skipped the patrolling gas bags, which I was quite nervous about to be honest, but we actually managed to walk past them. Then he pulled a bit big, which I feel like the healer wasn't quite ready for. Next I told him to pull the 2 big adds into the next boss. At first he doesn't do it, but then he apologizes and does. This is a really weird experience to me because 1. I don't tank. I never tanked any of the dungeons, I don't know the route, but our tank needs help, guidance. It's weird to backseating a tank who literally asked for it. I'm impressed he didn't get hooked on Gorchop at all. On the last wing, I just told him to run across the hole and just blood boil to get aggro on the small adds and pull them into the next room for line of sight. I did not have time to type down to also pull the big ghost before the portals into this. I felt like I had to sacrifice my DPS quite often to type, which annoyed me a little bit. This would have been much easier through a Discord call or something, cause I didn't mind trying to help, just not like this I guess. After Kultharok we pulled the first 3 mobs we skipped at the beginning because we missed some percentage somewhere. I bet we needed to pull one of the side trash in the platforms before Kultharok, but again, I haven't tanked yet myself, I was just winging it. On the last boss, he was tanking it in the middle, which worried me, so I pinged for him to pull the boss to the side, otherwise we'll be run over by adds all the time. Well, we did manage to time the key in the end, with me guiding through the tank, so I call this great success. It was certainly a weird experience, but I don't want to imagine how this dungeon would have gone if none of us said anything. The next key was Dark Flame Cleft once again. The first boss was incredibly frustrating because I did even better than last time. I got fixated, so I used Invis to avoid it. Then I ripped aggro. The tank couldn't be bothered to taunt, so I died. This pissed me off so much. I could have used more defensives, but I was just waiting for him to taunt. But it never came. Other than that, nothing particularly interesting happened during this run. We timed it comfortably. The last dungeon of the week was Motherlode. We had only one death throughout the whole run, but I got Keystone Master from this dungeon. Nice! Last thing to show you guys is the vault, which is really hard to watch back because I made a series of really bad decisions here, which I'll explain in the next episode. I picked the Entropic Guarding Core because it seemed high. I got myself a staff and a belt crafted. So, after the crafted items and upgrading everything, I'm at 659 item level. Oh, hey there! You might be wondering, what am I doing? I made so many mistakes this week that I could make an entire mountain out of them. So, I'm climbing the mountain of my mistakes. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Arcane Mage series. Last time I reached 659 item level and 2008 rating, which means I got Keystone Master. This week was the first week of the turbo boost, so naturally I'm going to start with the puzzling cartel chip quest, which requires me to do 4 dungeons, so I hopped into a Theater of Pain +8. I made a grave error on the first boss by not focusing down the Bloodhorn. I should have used my opener on it, so it goes down faster. This way it lived a lot longer than it should have and put a ton of pressure on the healer to keep us above the grass, but thankfully we still managed to down the boss without any deaths. Gorchop became a bit ropey when the healer died. We were out of combat reses, so we had to survive the fight without him. The Demon Hunter helped out with darkness, and I also put out a mass barrier afterwards to make sure we survived long enough. I also popped a health potion, and we barely managed to defeat the boss before he got us all. Other than this, nothing particularly interesting happened. We barely missed out on a double upgrade, which I'm sure the key holder wasn't very happy with, but it is what it is. The next dungeon was Workshop 8, where we once again pulled the whole first room together and didn't blow up this time. But my damage was awful compared to the others, and I'm not entirely sure why exactly. I guess my target, who had Touch of Magi, died too fast, so I got barely any benefit out of it, and I wasn't getting any procs for arcane missiles to cleave either. The first boss goes down without any issues, and I must disappoint you guys, there was no fried floor chicken this time. I haven't really elaborated on what this turbo boost actually means. So for those who don't know, Blizzard put in a vendor that has rare raid items such as trinkets, special weapons, and Mythic Plus trinkets are included as well. Heroic level is available for everyone, and Mythic level is only available for people who killed some bosses on Mythic in the raid or completed +12 dungeons. This is character bound, so this week we are awarded with 3 cartel chips for completing 4 dungeons or raid bosses, and in subsequent weeks we get 1 chip per week, so the second item you can buy in 3 weeks later. Additionally, they also increase the upgrade track on items, and crafted items go all the way up to 681 as well now. I'll be honest with you guys, I was really not excited for this at all. I would have welcomed this system for my Paladin series, but I've been begging for that stupid Mr. Pick-Me-Up trinket because it's stupidly broken compared to anything else that's available, but it's too late. For any new character, this system sucks a bit though, because you need an insane amount of crests to upgrade everything, even heroic items. I know, however, this helped a lot of people who were playing at higher key levels and they've been a bit stuck on certain levels, let's say, for example 15s, and had a hard time progressing past that, and this helped them getting into timing 16s. Which is great, but I personally have no interest in going that far. We had only one single death in this workshop run towards the end. We easily double upgraded this key. The next dungeon was Rookery 7, which was my own key. And the reason I'm doing this because I don't think I can get into a 10, and my goal for this week is to do at least one single plus 10 for the vault. I don't even care too much if it's timed, although I would obviously prefer it. So I have to get my key up to 10. I made a grave error when putting this group together. I did not invite a combatress, and I didn't have jumper cables on me either. So of course, the demon hunter goes down at the start of the fight. So we had to foreman the entire boss. Then of course, on the second boss, not long into the fight, the monk perished, so once again, we had to foreman the entire boss. Luckily, we managed to avoid further deaths on the last boss, so we did time the dungeon very comfortably and plus 2'd this key. Next, I joined Cinderbrew plus 8. I don't know about you guys, but for me it's a massive red flag usually when the tank goes to the left first to pull. I was really conscious to make sure how I position myself so I don't pull anything extra, but it didn't matter because the tank went a bit ballistic and did it himself. I felt so bad for this healer. Look at his HPS, is a very steady 2.5 mil, but eventually he goes down. So does the tank, and then we are just chain dying. On the first boss after the intermission, the tank quite literally cornered himself into the clouds, even though the entire right side of the room was completely clear. Then, the druid gets caught in the cloud trying to heal people. In the room of the P Elemental, I still cannot figure out how the pack gets pulled, which ultimately will break this key for good. I watched this footage back so many times and I just don't understand how those aggroed. The tank pulls the pack, nobody is close. I had to invis because I ripped aggro, and in that exact moment the pyromaniac starts running first, then the rest. I saw no spell flying towards them, absolutely no indication of anything, nobody's close to them, so I don't know. We only vibed, but after releasing, the mobs ran all the way after me for some bizarre reason, which caused another chain of deaths. At this point, the healer left, and honestly, can you blame him? I'm surprised he didn't leave earlier. This was torture. Don't worry though, I ran it back with a different group and we were able to time it. After brewing in cinders, I did my own Motherlode 8 to finish off the quest for the puzzling cartel chip, and we plus 2'd it, so I got a Floodgate 10 out of it. Okay, now comes a series of big mistakes. Last week after opening the vault, I picked the Entropic Guarding Core. This was on the first day of the turbo boost, and the light bulb in my head was broken, so I didn't realize that I could just buy a good trinket, so I should have taken the heroic tier chest as I still had veteran. This wouldn't have been that bad if I used my brain afterwards and had bought the Jester's Diamond that would have replaced Cyrus's Circlet. That would have been overall a bigger upgrade, but instead I was stupid and I just bought the Mugsy trinket because that's what seemed highest. I'm mainly showing you this so you can learn from my mistakes. Don't just blindly go for the highest numbers. Look at the overall picture. Don't be like me. After this embarrassing choice, I also got myself a necklace crafted. Speaking of embarrassment, this next Floodgate 8 was incredibly difficult for me to watch back. On the first boss, we kind of ran out of space, and I get the sonic boom. As a mage I can just blink through it quite easily, but for some reason I panicked, and I can't even really explain why I ran into the wall and took the warrior down with me. I felt so terrible. Me dying is one thing, but to cause someone else's is like the worst case scenario for me. But this wasn't the worst moment in this dungeon. It was this. Oh my god. Just get me out of here. I'm fucking terrible with alter time. I didn't even mean to press it. I felt incredibly embarrassed after this, and I just wanted to be done with this dungeon and log off fast. We were able to double upgrade this key even with my royal fuck-ups, otherwise I would have felt incredibly guilty for ruining this guy's chance at getting a +10 key. Needless to say, I disappeared after this faster than a tank leaving after one wipe into key. A couple days later I came back as a warm-up. I did a Dark Flamecraft 8 and a Priory 8. I had some heroic items lying in my bag, which I then catalyzed afterwards. Also, you can bet on this furry corgi bot that after that horrendous mistake in Floodgate, I got myself an alter time Vikura, so I know when it's about to expire. It was finally time for my own key, which was a Floodgate 10. After last time, I was really hoping I would do better in this dungeon. After the first trash pack, we vibed because the tank went down in 2 seconds. The healer apologized, but it wasn't their fault. Blood Decay is a self-sustaining tank. That's their whole mechanic. You really shouldn't need to throw a heal at them. You can throw them an external defensive, that is probably welcome, but they shouldn't need too much attention healing wise. So I'm pretty sure this guy just didn't press his buttons. This was just the beginning, my friends. On the boss, the healer died literally the same way I did last time. But we managed to survive the boss, so we didn't wipe. Then the demon hunter died on the trash before the gliders, which took forever to kill without him. And then came the single biggest clown moment of this dungeon. What do you think happened? I'll tell ya. The demon hunter, for some reason I cannot explain, decided to not take the glider down, and he thought, and used his own wings to glide down, but he didn't quite make it and brings a train of mobs with him, which then causes us to vibe once again. Thanks, buddy. On the boss stand we had a full vibe because the druid just stood in the circle where the bombs came down and no reaction from the warlock nor the DK, so we vibed. On the second attempt I die in the same circle by accidentally blinking into it. I got dressed but then died again because I didn't use defensive and I was low enough for the boss to finish me off. We vibed again and again. Afterwards the tank left and I was going to leave as well. The next day was Tuesday morning, last day before reset on EU. I thought I'll try something I haven't before and just start applying to tens with a note that said, non-lever, good vibes and lost. And wouldn't you believe it, I actually got invited into a +10 Theatre of Pain. Now, it probably wasn't because of the note, as 90% of players won't read those, but I really appreciated the invite because we were able to time this dungeon successfully, thus getting a mythic item in the vault. Speaking of the vault, it was Myth-Track Legs, which then allowed me to equip Champion Hasteworth chest that's been in my bags. So, I ended this week with 662 item level and 2303 rating. As you can see now, I only need to time 7 dungeons to finish this series, so I'm aiming to get that done next week. In this episode, I'm going to show you the road to timing all 10s. Talk about how Arcane Mage felt to play, and what were the strengths and struggles, and I'll have a super cheesy review at the end of which character am I going to play next. We already know that it will be a tank. All you need to do is to get cozy and enjoy the show. So, last time I got up to 662 item level and a rating of 2303, and I timed my first +10 on a mage, which was the Theatre of Pain. Now I have 7 dungeons to go. The first thing I did this week was to get the head enchant from the Horrific Visions. I didn't do it on the mage, however, because it's warbound and I expected it to be difficult, but turned out it wasn't. If you have no friends and don't take any NPC with you, it's actually quite easy. Afterwards I jumped into a Rookery +8 as a warm-up. Nothing particularly interesting happened until we went downstairs where the tank felt like pulling big, which was amazing for my DPS, but not so much for the healer. We got to a point where it was only me and the tank alive, and I had to ask him to throw me a word of glory or some kind of heal because I'm gonna bleed out. I did die just as the healer arrived, but oh well, we managed to not fully wipe at least. This week's affix was the Dispelling one. As a mage I can easily remove this from myself with Remove Curse. On the last boss, the tank tried to encourage the Red Paladin to help with Dispelling, but he kind of lost his mind and started yelling brains like some zombie. Brains! We did time the dungeon and I got a measly 9 points for it. Okay, now it was time for the remaining 7 +10s. I continued my strategy from last week by applying with the note of non-lever, good vibes and lost, and added later on Dispel as well because it was that affix. As mentioned last time, I have no idea if this made any difference at all, but it was worth a try, I guess. The first +10 was a floodgate. Do you see those boxes? Apparently, if you jump on the highest one, you can completely avoid the spinning saws. But instead, I do this. I didn't realize at the time, that I wasn't even the first to die. Pretty much all of us did apart from the tank. And then the druid asked afterwards, "What was that?" Which came off to me as if he's looking for someone to blame. I explained myself because I thought I died first. And now I feel like an idiot because I felt so terrible and guilty about this mistake. But if we look closer, the druid died first by just simply taking a vacation in the Blades. Pretty much all of us messed up on that pull, apart from the tank maybe. I even apologized at the end of the dungeon one more time after we timed it. GG's, go next I suppose. This Mechagon 10 was kinda funny. For me at least, the others maybe not so much. We are graced by the presence of a survival hunter, something we see very rarely these days. I made a series on this back in season 1, you'll find it in the description, but I also know of someone else who did a 0 to hero on this back recently, a fellow content creator, Calibara, who is currently doing 0 to hero on Preservation Evoker. He is a nice and very relatable person. I had a few chats with him and he's a pretty cool guy, so go give him some love after this video. I wish I could say similarly nice things about this hunter, but not really. On the second boss, he accidentally disengaged into the dog trash, which you know, could happen to anyone. And then he died to the box explosion, at least that's what it looked like. What could have been the dot, I'm not sure. He got rezzed and then died from the box explosion this time for sure, but the tank did too. So we had to reset the boss. On the second attempt, he dies from the box explosion again. Being a good little hunter, he wanted to pet the robot squirrel, but that didn't end well for him either. On the last boss, we vibed at the most unexpected point of the fight. In phase 1, the Holy Paladin stood a bit too close to the cutting beam, so he took a close look at the floor, and then he got rezzed just as the balls moved.
I like your cut, G.
So he died again. Me and the other paladin suggested it to vibe fast. On the second attempt, we managed to time this messy run with only 35 seconds left. In Dark Flame Cleft, I became a sacrificial lamb because the tank wanted to skip the big pack before the boss. But you can't make the jump without a speed increase, which I don't have. The warrior could have heroic leapt up, but I think we were both sacrificed for the skip instead. These were the only deaths in this key, which I found a bit silly, but whatever, we +2'd this key, so I'm not complaining. Next destination, Motherlode 10. Our tank was a little inexperienced. On the first boss, while the boss positioning was good, he never moved the boss away from the coins, so he always sucked some up, which I think means his abilities hit harder. The healer did not hold back with the criticism, of course, by saying multiple times that he is too slow. I tried to defend him a bit by saying let him pull what he's comfortable with. After the second boss, the DK disconnected, but luckily he came back. After the third boss, he took the criticism about being too slow to the heart and did the polar opposite and just kept pulling while everyone was fixated by a million mines. And then, ironically, the healer says, "What the fuck, dude? Stop pulling 20 at a time." Imagine being a tank in this day and age. If you're too slow, that's the problem. If you pull too much, that's the problem. I truly felt for our tank. We barely managed to time this key, but kudos to the demon hunter because he was trying to stay positive throughout rather than just constantly criticizing the tank. After this dungeon, I handed in the quest for the heroic cache I forgot to mention, but I got a useless weapon out of it. I also got myself cloth braces crafted. I have 3 more dungeons left to complete. Cinderbrew Meadery was surprisingly easy. There were a couple individual mistakes, but nothing worth reporting. So far, I've timed everything, so naturally, something has to go wrong, and I am the cause. In Priory, I thought I positioned myself well, and my arcane orbs were hitting the wall. Except one. And that one singular orb manages to hit the patrol, of course.
No, 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 no.
I fired several in that direction, all of them hit the wall, so why that one went further is beyond me. I was so incredibly frustrated at myself, I played pretty badly afterwards. We had a full wipe to this, and although I didn't cause further wipes, the tank pulled a bit more than he could handle and went down. So we added another 5 deaths. It probably won't come as a surprise that we did not time this key, although we finished it. I was quite upset, so a few days later I redeemed myself in this dungeon by not dying a single time or causing any wipes. The last key I needed now was Rookery 10, and man, this was harder to get into than any of the elite schools combined in the world. I just needed this one singular dungeon, and it was very frustrating to run around Dornogo and applying to rookeries. I imagine most high-rated people do this dungeon for their weekly key because it's a short one, and a lot of people abuse this fact. After about 2 hours or so, I finally got an invite. On the last boss, the hunter died at the start of the fight. Me and the tank tried to cover his side of the pillar. And then I kind of felt like the tank was trolling me by trying to cover it a second time. The third one spawned on him, so I thought, okay fine, you do it then. So I left him. Then of course I didn't pay attention and he failed to cover the fourth one, which was really frustrating, but we managed to survive and 4-man this boss, thus hitting Keystone Hero and finishing all 10s in time. My last mage vote was shockingly terrible. You'd think from 3 mythic windows at least one would be useful, but nah fam. So, how did it feel to play Arcane Mage? Let's start with the pros. Arcane Mage is currently a meta spec. This means you will be a lot more likely to get invited, compared to a rogue for example. You also have Bloodlust, Decurse, and Mass Barrier is an awesome utility spell to help out others. This spec is quite bursty. Your cooldowns literally feel as if you were charging yourself up and then unleash a massive barrage of spells. You do this by using Evocation, followed by Arcane Surge with Trinkets, Potions, and then Touch of Magi, and then you can unleash hell. Because of how your cooldowns work, Arcane Mage is really good for focusing down big targets, for example muscles in Cinderbrew Meadery, any mob that has a bigger health pool. Visually it looks very impactful and pleasing, although I'm pretty sure I didn't play it with its full potential. I'd say it's not hard to learn. One of the big reasons why I never tried Arcane Mage before is because it was either too easy back in the first few expansions or extremely complicated like in the first season of Dragonflight. Happy to report, neither is the case anymore. I found that mages have a decent survivability. You have your own barrier, alter time, ice cold, invisibility reduces damage, and mirror images do too. Now some cons. I could not imagine playing this pack without Arcane Barrage Helper Vikora and even the Alter Time Vikora. I'm pretty sure there are more out there, but the Arcane Barrage Helper at least is pretty crucial because there are multiple different conditions on when you should use it, and it's really hard to remember those different conditions by yourself, in my opinion. Positioning Arcane Orb. Because of Arcane Orb, you really need to be conscious about your positioning. You can't just stand anywhere because, as you saw a few times already, Arcane Orb will go into Africa and pull half the dungeon and cause vibes. It's too cooldown reliant. While your cooldowns make for a nice fluid gameplay, without using your cooldowns you are literally useless. This is especially frustrating if tanks do staggered pulls or pull only small packs and you don't want to waste your cooldowns on them. Best for high keys. In lower key levels, even if you put your Touch of Magi on a high health target, things will still die a lot faster, so you might feel that you don't get any value out of your cooldown, which can be quite disappointing. Respect probably performs in higher key levels much better because of this. Overall, Arcane Mage is a pretty solid spec right now. I would definitely recommend trying it out, especially if you want easy dungeon invites. I only struggled with an invite for that Rookery 10, otherwise I only waited 10 minutes max, even for other +10s. It's quite fun to play if you don't mind having to position yourself. And now, the cheesy character reveal. Enjoy! I'm a night elf monk, tall and proud. This is myself, and I roll around. So, as you can see, I didn't make it far as a monk, and I've been resurrected by the Lich King. I guess I'll be Blood Death Knight now. Meet Die This Way. Or Diet His Way? However you want to call her. Blood DK won on the poll by quite a lot, which surprised me. I personally would have picked Bear, but it's your choice, not mine. I thank you all very much for watching if you made it this far. Stay tuned for the movie version of the Arcane Mage series. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Otherwise, come and watch this noob tanking next Sunday. Bye bye!